Therapy roulette, consent to vent. Trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy roulette, consent to vent. If you don't have problems, then you're likely repressing shit, and you should find a therapist who's not me.
All right, we're here with Gabe Mollica. Gabe, how is it going?
You know, Michelle, it is going as well as I guess it could go. We were just, we were just discussing that there are challenges with any situation. But I'm home with my parents on Long Island from my former stand-up comedy days in New York. So that's an adjustment because, I don't know, I'm 28. Like, there's some ways where you just, like, feel like you're 15 again. Like, it doesn't, like, I'm not using those bed sheets that boys have with like sports balls on them, but it feels every night I go to bed. Yeah, every night I go to bed, it feels like there's a soccer ball and a hockey puck and like a football on my sheets and on my comforter. Right. It's just like,
are you in your like forever childhood home? Did you grow up there?
Yeah, we've been here forever. Yeah. My parents 30 years and I'm 28, so it's like, yeah, this has been my bed since and like my room since I was like 10 or something.
I know the feeling because I didn't even realize you lived so close to my parents. So whenever I go home, I feel like I'm trapped in like some middle school adolescent, torture chamber where I can't get out of my own head.
Yeah, and like I'm a boy, so like I'm wearing the same clothes basically that I had in high school, and like the same underwear and the same short, like because like boys don't evolve, we just like have taxes to pay, I guess.
I would say you've evolved from when I first met you. I think we both have.
Oh, yeah. Maybe not my style.
Style.
Yeah, I've definitely evolved. Style? I mean, I was like a choir kid in marching band. So I've evolved in like, I guess a certain type of aesthetic, maybe not like, but like, it's like I took up golf this summer because I had nothing else to do. And I like wear this like polo shirt. And then like I found an old picture of me and it's like my 8th grade picture taking, and I was like a big kid, and I'm wearing the same shirt. I'm just like, oh man. Is
it just lying around your parents' house, the same shirt?
Yeah, it's like one of those like really soft polo t-shirts that says Notre Dame on it, and it's just like I like wearing this shirt to golf, and I've been wearing it since I was 13. So it's 15 years old.
Have you like retracted to your high school self, or is this maybe like who you were always meant to be, just a Garden City golfer?
Oh, well, it's public golf, mind you, no fancy country club golf. Is it who always meant to be? I mean, part of me feels like I like should not be here. Like it does not allow me to express myself.
It's weird to live at your parents' house for so long.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I had been gone like 4 years of college, and then I was in Scotland for a year where I started comedy, and then I came back.
I didn't know you were there for a whole year in Scotland?
Yeah, I taught there. I had this like teaching fellowship.
Oh, cool. I knew you did the Fringe Fest, right?
Yeah, I did that last summer, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So I brought a stand-up show there. But I started comedy in Edinburgh, and so the reason I wanted to do the Fringe was because it was 5 years basically to the summer that I started comedy there. So it was like, oh, like, let's see how far I've come in 5 years. And it was sort of a triumphant return in some ways.
Yeah. Let me just pause you for a second, Gabe, because I wanted to make sure my audio thing's plugged in, but it is. I was freaking out.
Sweet. I'm glad it's good.
Yeah. So you lived there for a year teaching?
Yeah, I had this like weird job where I just like filled in all the gaps at the school. So like I was the varsity basketball coach, which was insane. What? Yeah, and like high school theater kid like coached the basketball team, but like they were American, so they were like, "Oh, you must know like LeBron James and Kobe." And
yeah, America's so small.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they just like let me do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. And when I went back this summer, some of the boys I coached, we met up and played basketball, and they came to my show. So that was pretty cool too. And
were you a good basketball coach?
I mean, I thought I was. Maybe I wasn't. I don't know. It's definitely one of the things I enjoyed the most while I was over there. So it was a really hard year for me. I mean, this ties into therapy perfectly. It was a really hard year for me because I started comedy over there basically because I was dating a girl who broke up with me, and then like 3 weeks later started dating my best friend. And so it was just like just like a classic girls season 5 situation, and
we gotta have the height of drama when you go abroad.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been. It's basically just like me starting adulthood, and I started comedy right after that. It's just like I needed something to do. I was just like so sad all the time, and
you don't want to like be alone with your thoughts for too long.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny to be doing a podcast because that was the year that I just got so into like the Pete Holmes podcast, and just like 3-hour episodes, I would just like annihilate. And I remember I listened to one. I listened to one with I think it was Whitney Cummings, and like, I think Whitney Cummings is fine. I would not say she's like my favorite comic of all time. And like the conversation ended after 3 hours of me just like walking around, and it ended. And I remember being like, I do not want this to end. And I was like, I don't even like this, and I just like can't have it end.
Yeah, that's something that happens to me like regardless of my mood though. With podcasts, I'm always like, I wasn't ready for this to just be over, and like my friends are leaving because I you're alone listening to a podcast usually. So
yeah, it's very intimate. It's very.
I feel like you're
solo.
talking to these people. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very. Yeah. I know. Every time. Yeah. My like mirror neurons are firing every time I listen to a podcast where I'm like, what would I be saying to Pete? Or Marion or all those different hosts that I feel like I mean we all feel like we know at a certain point, because everybody who's doing comedy now basically like was radicalized by the comedy podcasts and the creative process and mics and all that stuff that like used to sort of be secret.
And I remember when I first got into like Mark Maron, I first saw him at a music festival. I saw him in like 2011 or something, and then I saw him in Brooklyn, and no one else in my social circle knew who he was. So I was like, no one knows who Mark Maron is, and now like he is, everyone knows him.
Yeah, he's so ubiquitous. Yeah, it's so funny. When I was in college in around 2011 or 2012, my like first like real therapist would tell me about listening to Maron.
It's very therapy minded, his podcast. I try to mirror his intros where I'm like, here's way too much about me just because no one else is asking, and then like just so I can get it off my chest. And it kind of it's the podcast thing to do.
Yeah, well, I used to. It's so funny you say that. I used to like skip through the Maron intros. I'd be like, all right, Mark, like let's get to like, I don't know, Princess Diana or whoever he's interviewing, and I would like not care about the intro. And then during the pandemic, even before like his girlfriend passed away, I was like, I need to check up on Mark. Like I need to know how Mark is doing because he was struggling. And then obviously like Lynn passes away and it's so sad. And now I'm like, I don't care who the guest is. Like I won't even listen to the interview. I'm just like, how is Mark? Like is he, how's his eating? Like has he got that under control?
I go like back and forth, especially that podcast, WTF, has been around forever.
Yeah.
I guess it's probably a decade plus old by now, but I used to go back and forth. Like, I'm so sick of hearing Mark Maron talk. I don't want to know anything else about him. And then you take a break from the podcast, or you maybe skip past the intro. Then you're like, I miss him. How is he? And you want to hear more. So if you don't, I guess you have to like moderate it. But some podcasts I think are the best with the intros and they lack with the guests. And then I guess it can depend based on the day, the episode.
Yeah. And yeah, sometimes he just like drops these gems in the intro. So I was walking around New York probably like
I also love his like tales of sobriety where he's like, I'm eating too much Haagen-Dazs, or I found this new topping for my ice cream. Like, tell me more.
Well, I don't have a problem with drugs or alcohol, and I don't do alcohol. I don't do either of them at all. But like I just love food a lot, and so like I relate to Mark, but like not from the same place. Like he relates to food as like, oh, this is like the last thing I'm allowed to do since I gave up smoking and heroin, and I'm just like, this is the only thing I've ever liked. But like I understand the struggle, Mark. Like ice cream's really good.
Yeah. So are you a sober person then?
Yeah. I haven't. Yeah, I guess I had 1 or 2 drinks last summer in Ireland and in Scotland, just because I was there, and it's like, oh, I'll have a Guinness, I guess. But
a vacation drink.
Yeah. We had I was staying with my friend in Ireland, and we they own this little lake in the middle of the country, and we untangled this boat that got this old ratty boat that got stuck in all this gross stuff, and we did like an hour of labor, and it was messy and gross, and they were like, do you want a Guinness? I was like, absolutely, like it is well deserved. But yeah, I'm a sober person. It just like wasn't doing anything for me. And I had like the last summer I like drank was like 2017. And I was sort of dating a girl who drank a lot, and we would just like both drink a lot. And like halfway through, it was like a summer long relationship. I was just like, I don't like this at all. Like, I just like don't want to be doing this. I like don't feel good after it. And since then, no drinking for me.
Were you dating the girl in New York at the time?
Yeah, we met. We were working at a summer camp upstate, and she's British, and so yeah, and so like it was gonna end eventually. When she moved back, it wasn't like and she moved to New Zealand, so she moved like as far away as a human can move. But like she liked to drink, and like halfway through it, I was just like, I actually hate this. I actually never want to drink anymore.
Yeah.
Because like we fight, and it sucks.
So many relationships are like they continue because you just keep getting drunk or whatever. And in New York, that's such a big thing in the city. Like people just drink all day, every day. And I think in Britain also. So some cultures is just like part of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, having lived in Scotland and then done the Fringe, I've noticed that like I think fewer performers are like getting bombed every night. I tend to think, because I lived with,
well, especially because it's a month-long festival.
Yeah, so over there, I mean, I had 5 roommates who were all comics, and at least 3 of us were sober.
You get more done.
Yeah, you definitely get more done, and like I just like prefer food. Like I'd much rather spend $15 on food than like 2 drinks or whatever. Sometimes
I hear you.
Yeah, it just like doesn't do anything for me.
I drink rarely since living in LA, and my boyfriend is sober, so I only drink like around friends. And then even last night, my friend was making cocktails, and I had one, and then she's like, "You want another?" I was like, "Oh no, I've had one. I'm done."
More than
like
enough.
Such a lightweight in Los Angeles because I don't know, it's not as big of a thing here. A lot of people don't drink.
Yeah. Is that? I mean, I guess the driving, there's an element to that, and like though, I guess when Uber first came out in LA, I imagine everyone was drinking like crazy because they're like, we can get home now. We don't have to like leave a car.
I think the young people and the wealthy people do, but Uber's kind of expensive here. Like it's not everything's more spread out than New York, where you could get places for a $5 car ride. But here it's like they gouge you. Oh yeah,
I bet. Yeah, it's probably crazy. That's probably really insane.
Yeah,
so I'd like to come.
Stay off the Guinness, Gabe. You're doing good.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah, and like I have no compulsion to drink. Yeah.
What's your food of choice then?
Oh man. I mean, I just like in general, like I make an omelet basically every day, and like I take a lot of pride in it. And I'm doing this thing. I'm just doing like very, very low carb right now. And like after a couple days, I could just like feel a lot better. So I'm trying to do things that make me feel better.
That's awesome. So you're like noticing what you put into your body actually like affects how you feel, how you act every day.
I mean, as much as I would be like, yeah, I just eat Taco Bell every day because it's dope. And like that's the other thing. Like after a show, there's no better food on earth than the chicken quesadilla from Taco Bell. It's like very important to me to have like a post-show quesadilla, because like before a show, like whether I eat or not, like after a show I just like feel emotionally and like physically drained, and like I take great comfort ideally in a car somewhere, ideally in like my black Hyundai. A chicken quesadilla really moves me.
Just alone in the car, like
oh absolutely,
shoveling down a quesadilla.
Podcast, music, quesadilla. Yeah, I love to eat in my car. It's maybe I'm meant for checking on Pete, see how Mark's doing. Yeah, maybe I'll fit in LA because I love to be alone in my car, and I like to eat in my car alone.
Come to LA, get your car. It's like a little bubble. You don't have to leave that often. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, my worry would be like the stuff I would like about it, I would like really, really like.
I know, I get conflicted because now with the pandemic, I can't even come back to New York. You have to quarantine for 2 weeks if you go to New York right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not coming anytime soon. And I just miss the people there mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So I like LA. Don't plan to leave long term, but it would be nice to like be on both coasts part of the year.
Yeah. Are you still working for CBS?
CBS, no. I just got like a real job, so
Nice.
I haven't been at CBS for a minute. And then with the pandemic, I had like part-time jobs, and now I'm in a real company with like not an entertainment focus. So I'm trying something new while doing the podcast on the side.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, like, a comic I like really love, he just like posted on Instagram like, congrats on getting into grad school. And I'm like, wow, we really all have to the world is changing. We have to change with it. There's no shame in that. Like, so like, I hear you. Good for you. Glad you're have a lot of projects. That's cool.
Yeah. Who got into grad school? You or just like a random person?
Just a random person. Yeah. My buddy, and I was happy for him, but also like, oh, he's so good at comedy, man. Like, I hope he keeps doing stand-up forever.
But comedy is such a like it's an art you need to like live for. Like you need to have experience, you need to go do stuff. So I'll always like do comedy when I can, but if I'm not doing something, what am I gonna write jokes about?
Yeah, oh, you have to, I mean, that's an old, no, I'm just reverting to my Pete Holmes, the Holmesian theories, but you have to live a life worth commenting on. That's the thing he always used to say, and I always appreciated that, because I always felt that I was taking like a little bit of a circuitous route in everything I did, because I just like, I don't know, trying to do the thing that's the most meaningful that I could do. So like there was that summer camp that I worked at for like 6 years, and like the kids that go there have life-threatening illnesses, so like they're quote unquote sick kids, and it was just like the most meaningful thing I could think to do, and I loved it. And even when I started stand-up, I'd be like, ooh, I should stay in the summer and do stand-up all summer. And then I'd be like, no, I have like a really cool opportunity. And like, I do not regret going to camp at all for a single minute. And so
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I liked that.
It's just an enriching, like rewarding, you know, you're doing good in the world when you do something like that.
Oh yeah. It feels good to do good. And like, it's also just like 60 really nice, cool counselors and like kids who you know and get to know over years and years, and parents, and it's like the most fun in the world. And so I always liked the idea of like, you have to live a life to like be any type of artist, really. But the idea it's like, oh no, I should stay in New York and like do 100 sets. Like you get so much better at comedy in that year or in that 3 months.
Didn't you do 100? You did 100 sets, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the first thing when I started comedy in New York after having done it in Scotland, and I like got back into it. It was like the fall of 16, so like just as Trump was getting elected. And I was like, I'm going to do 100 sets of stand-up, and I'm going to do a blog about it, because I just like needed some like accountability. And it was a good project, and I ended up doing 100 that year.
I thought it was so cool just to follow on Instagram, see like what you were doing. Because every time I saw you post, I was like, I couldn't do that. Like, I can't do 100 sets or commit. I can't commit to anything that huge. It seems so intimidating. So that was awesome. You like went after it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I just like needed a thing to like think about as I was doing. So like each set was 1%. So it's like, oh, if this goes really poorly, it's like, oh, it's like, it's not even all of the download. It's like so little of it. So I needed that as like an inspiration. And then like I had done more and more sets every year until the pandemic hit. So it was nice to have that like benchmark. But
let me ask you about your stand-up career, because we'll get into therapy eventually, but since we're on the subject, what made you want to do stand-up?
The first time I like knew I wanted to do it was I was a senior in college, and I was visiting a girl I was dating in Boston, and my buddy Nick texted me. He's like, hey, I just saw this thing on Netflix called Mike Birbiglia is my girlfriend's boyfriend, and I think you would really love it. And so I watched it with this girl I was dating at the time, and I was just like totally floored. I was like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. It's so funny because the jokes were so good. I felt like really connected to his character. I mean, he's playing himself, but it's like certainly a heightened version of himself. So I felt really connected to him. And I remember being like saying to the girl I was dating, I was like, wow, I want to do that. And she had like a very proportionate response, which is like, you are very impulsive. And at the time I was like, I'm not impulsive. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like I like definitely resented it. And like years later, I'm like, oh, you were 100% right. Like super impulsive, but also like, you know, I was 21 or 22.
21, yeah.
And
to college. I mean, you're trying to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah. I was really, because I was like a music major and like not a certified teacher to teach music. So like, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And
you have an arts background. You were like the star of the school plays.
Yeah,
so you have
I was a theater kid.
A theatrics background.
Yeah, lots of musicals and all that stuff. And I was doing that stuff in college too. But anyway, so I watched Birbiglia and it was amazing. And on the bus ride back to school, I started writing down like, oh, what would my version of this show be? And just like for the first time in my life, like outlining a show. And like I didn't have any material, like I didn't know what it would be or could be.
What's that Birbiglia special about? Because I don't know if I know it from the title.
Oh, it's so good. It's basically about falling in love with his wife.
Okay.
And it's like a nonlinear narrative. So like he keeps cutting back and forth between like this car accident he has and his childhood, like failed first kisses and then meeting his wife. And like, it's really, I think it's his best one by far.
Yeah. He's such a good storyteller.
Yeah. Oh, he's incredible. And his politics have been disappointing me because he like posts because he like is one of those comics who just like dunks on like Trump and Trump supporters, and I'm just like, we know that they're bad. Like, there's more to this than like Trump is bad. Like, believe in something like healthcare. And maybe I'm just
I saw one post he did that was appealing to like the people who don't vote or the people who aren't interested in voting. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely good to get people to vote. My issue with that is always just like it's about more than getting people to vote. Like,
yeah.
like people vote like.
It's always hard because you want to start somewhere.
Yes.
And then you want to just keep going, and there's so much to do, and we live in a terrible world, so it's hard to like get any wins or any feeling good in 2020 is hard to come by. So.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just disappointed. I just like want him to be more ideological. Like I want him to be like,
because you want to be him.
Yeah, part of me wants to be him, but I'm like why can I see that like we need to be advocating for healthcare and like or like we can't just pretend that Joe Biden's amazing. Like this is so foolish. Like you have to be understanding the criticisms of it. And so I'm just like, you're the best comedian I know. How do you not see this? How do I get this more than you do? So like, there's been other comics since like Ted Alexandro and a couple others that I'm like, this guy has my politics. This guy's a leftist. Like this guy's like wants to burn down the corporate establishment. So like, I'm more into those guys politically, but Birbiglia is still like my favorite. I mean, that's special if you get a chance to watch it. Ugh, it's so good. I know like every word.
I might have like listened to it. I definitely haven't watched it though. I'll have to look it up.
Oh. Yeah, and when you watch it, there's like certain jokes that not only land, but like work much better when you see him like running around the stage. And
he was actually the comic I saw either the day or like 2 days after Trump got elected. Because I had tickets to a Union Hall show, one of those like small Brooklyn clubs.
And
JoJo Firestone opened, and she was.
Joe.
I thought she was great. She made a lot of healthcare jokes, but the crowd hated her. They did not laugh
at Union Hall.
Once. It was Union Hall or like a similar club. I think it was Union Hall. Yeah. It was in that Park Slope neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it was just a sad day, you know. It was like fresh Trump presidency in our future. So
yeah, that was a mess. I wasn't really doing comedy.
Mike Birbiglia did his whole sleepwalking set, and people were like, "Okay, I guess this is funny." Like the crowd was so dead.
Yeah, that was not a week for comedy. It was really not a 4 years for comedy. Maybe we should just all change.
But I know what you mean. It's hard to idolize people and then follow them kind of closely and be like, why aren't you believing in what I believe?
Yeah, it made me so
you feel
bad.
A little disconnected.
Yeah, because so intimately connect to his comedy and really did inspire my life, I brought that show to Edinburgh and I wrote the show basically about starting comedy in Scotland was what the show's about, because I was like, oh, my girlfriend's boyfriend is so good, I want to try to do that. And so it's structured kind of similarly and took a long time to mold and figure out, and it's still not done. I'd like to eventually like record it. But yeah, that was like the first like big influence. So I started comedy sort of in an interesting way in that like I was doing all these sets and like those 100 sets or whatever, but it was all with I knew that I wanted to do solo shows. Like Birbiglia talks about like I wanted to be a comedian, and then like I realized I was better at the storytelling stuff, and so I like moved over that way. But I like swerved like 5 lanes. I was just like, I'm doing mics, but I want to do this big thing.
You've also done The Moth, haven't you?
Yeah, I've told stories at the Moth before, and then like the one I told in the fall of 2016, even before that election, and then they like called me, like, or they sent me an email like 3 years later, and were like, we want to put this on the radio, and I was like, okay, so that was pretty cool.
That's
yeah,
so cool.
Because I love the Moth.
Yeah,
and it was cool because like I didn't win that night, like I didn't go on to the next round or whatever, and I sort of forgot about it. And I had told like 3 or 4 stories at like the slams. And when they said like we want to put your story on the radio, like the last story in the world that I thought they were going to put up was the first one that I had done, because it's just like not as polished, I didn't think. And there's not as many jokes.
It's not your favorite.
Yeah, but then in retrospect, I was like, maybe this is the best one.
Everything's
because
subjective.
They used it. Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know what like people connect to. But also there's like a moment that I get like really dark in that episode, or like in that story. And I talk about like I would not say I was suicidal. I think that's really dramatic. But I did like not want, like I was just like, I feel so sad. Like I wish I were not alive. And I like said that in the story. And like I think the reason I said it, like I was talking about being in 9th grade, I think the reason I said it was because like I just like didn't know any better. I like didn't know that like you weren't supposed to just like say that.
I mean, it's like quote unquote triggering to say that, but then
yeah,
I think it's better to like talk about feelings like that to normalize them. I mean, I have like a suicide joke that almost never works, but I love telling it because I'm like, I think this is a cool topic to like bring to the stage and, you know, put a little bit of comedic light to it.
Oh, for sure. I just had no jokes about it. It was like a very sincere moment. And like now, if I were to approach that moment, I would have a little bit more skill and tact with like bringing it up. So it's a little funny to me that like the first time I like basically had ever said it in front of a crowd, it like ended up in front of like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of listeners.
The world.
Yeah.
The nation.
But it was cool. Like the teacher who I talk about in the story, like, reached out, and like random people on the internet reached out. And it's a cool program. I like, there's been a lot of Moth stories that have really impacted me. And so it was cool to be on there.
That's awesome. I mean, I like when things turn dark. I think that makes it, you know, there's like a heavier weight to it, and people listen more sometimes. So I try to do it whenever I can. I try to be dark.
yeah, it's fun. It's and there are ways to do it, you know, that that work better than others, but like you also just have to try a million things. And that's what really fucking sucks about the pandemic, is you just can't like fail publicly anymore. I like miss the shame. Maybe I have a shame kink. I just like miss the like figuring out,
like the bombing.
Yeah, even just like a joke bombing. Like it's one of the questions we discussed of like what might you talk about was about it made me think of so I did a set in Brooklyn a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, what's the last set I did in March? And it was a really good show I was on. It was a Friday night at New York Comedy Club. And I was like trying out a new joke, and it was about therapy. And the joke was about how I had this therapist. So I was really sad when I was in 9th grade, and my parents took me to a therapist, and the therapist thought I was there because I was emotionally disturbed by 9/11, which was not true.
And so I mean, you were what, 10 years old during 9/11?
I was 10 when 9/11 happened, and this was like 4 years later. And she thought like emotionally disturbed by it, and like I don't know why she thought that. And so like I was working on a joke about it, and I had some tags
maybe she was writing something like a dissertation.
That would not surprise me at all. She like thought I was like, and like I didn't know anybody personally that done. It was just like a very bizarre thing that like after like 4 sessions, she was like, I think I know what's wrong with you. And she was just so wrong. And so like I had all these tags about it where I was just like, I know I'm like 14, but is there something you want to talk about? You know, is it 9/11? And then I had the tag about like, I was I wasn't mad at her even though she diagnosed me with 9/11.
Yeah.
And I was like watching myself do these tags, and I'm like, oh yeah, I never got to like finish that idea. Like it just like it was an idea I had, and I wrote 3 tags for it, and I said I did it at a really good show, and it worked kind of okay, and it could work better the next time, but like there was no next time. And now it's, you know, November.
Were you watching a tape?
Yeah, that one I taped because it was like a bigger weekend show.
Okay. And it was kind of like newer material you were working out?
Yeah, I did it. I like newer material. I like to open with stuff I know. I like to open like being in the room. Then I'll tell some jokes that I like know are okay usually. And then like I might stick in like something new. And then like I like to finish the last like
that's smart.
Like 6 minutes with stuff. I was like as the last tag like didn't really work. I was like, that one's a little underbaked. Let's do some of the stuff I hope gets on television. And then like I went to the material that I thought was better, a little bit more polished. But like I miss that idea of like molding the clay. Like I can't even do that anymore. Like I can work on that like chunk of text, I guess, about having a therapist who thinks everything is 9/11. But
yeah, that is an interesting concept. You should.
Yeah, it definitely makes me laugh. It definitely, and like I don't know if it's like a sketch. It's just like everything's 9/11.
Going back to dark topics, 9/11, always a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, yeah. Who doesn't?
People love remembering the tragedy. Before COVID, we had 9/11.
Yeah, now we just have COVID, and like it's such a more prolonged and like terrible sadness because it's just like so many more people. I mean, they're both obviously terrible and sad, but like this one just like feels like it's never ending.
No, I mean this one has no end in sight unless you know maybe Biden will do something. He'll do something better for sure, but I don't know how quickly we're gonna recover from it.
Yeah, that was I couldn't agree more, and that was like my darkest moment on election night, where I was just like, because it looked like Trump was gonna win after he won Florida and Ohio. And
last week.
Yeah, last week on like Tuesday.
Yeah.
And it looked like Trump was gonna win, and we just like didn't know.
Tuesday sucked. It was so divided. It was so even.
Yeah, it was so and then like, you know, Michigan and Wisconsin came through, and it was like maybe this will be good. But my darkest moment was like, oh, like he's not gonna fucking if it's Trump, like he's not gonna fix anything. Like he's gonna keep doing it. And we're hitting record numbers of COVID, and like he never talks about it. Like he basically wants to pretend it's not there.
He got the virus, and he still doesn't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, does not care. Has no care in the world. And I was like, oh, we're never gonna get back to. I mean, like not just stand-up. I'm not like a psychopath. Like I just need to do comedy. But like we're not gonna get back to like stadiums and concerts and restaurants. And I was like, perhaps the best reason to vote for Biden is like, oh, maybe there's like a 10% chance like he does things like that are like help it 10%. It's like, I'll take those odds. Like, yeah, give me some Biden. Like maybe he'll be like something.
I'm super optimistic about Joe Biden in office. I think just like going from Trump to Biden, we're going to have a huge improvement. It's just about getting Trump out of office. That's like the current predicament. Because he hasn't, it's a week after the election, he hasn't conceded yet. So we'll see how he gets dragged out.
He's such a he's too much of a wuss, I think, to like actually get dragged out. He's a nightmare.
Today, listening to NPR, they're like, well, Trump, his whole brand is about winning, and we have to make sure he's not, a loser. We can't portray him as a loser. It's like, why are we coddling this 70-year-old man who
coddles no one? Yeah, total psycho. Yeah, completely insane.
But at least Biden and Kamala have revealed a COVID plan. They're talking to scientists. So if we have Dr. Fauci on our side, it's got to be better.
I really hope so. I hope you're right. I am so pessimistic about the Biden-Harris ticket, but I am deferring to you for the sake of the podcast, so I don't start screaming about, I don't know, all the million things I love to scream about.
We don't have to get too deep
but
into it.
I am deferring to you, Michele. I am rooting for you to be right. I want you to be so right. Let me tell you, I have to say that.
I have a good feeling. That's all I have.
Okay. I will take a good feeling. I will take pandemic money that they should be giving everyone. PPP.
Where's our stimulus check? Yeah.
I could, another round of stimulus would love. Yes, I'm rooting for you to be very right.
Have you watched any like recent coronavirus comedy? Because I was just watching the new Chappelle SNL monologue. He did a lot of COVID jokes.
He did. It was. I thought it was. Maybe I'm being a comedy snob, but I was like, oh, this is the stuff he was working on at like the summer camp, like where he at the Chappelle summer camp or whatever, and then he was also like throwing in, like he had one that like didn't work. He had like a bomb line. He was like, "Oh,
he got mad at some point."
Yeah. yeah.
He was making fun of women, and then no one liked it.
Oh yeah, now I remember. Yeah.
That's gonna be hard no matter what. You're in New York, Chappelle.
Yeah. I mean, like I love Chappelle. I think he's a genius, and I also. I don't want to say I'm disappointed, but like he set up that joke about like thinking about his, I think, great grandpa who was enslaved. He like had this like really beautiful setup, and like he weaves like his personal narrative, like the thing he did after George Floyd was murdered was amazing.
You liked it?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I just like him talking, like whether or not
I just thought it was so, I'm not a huge Chappelle fan. Like, I don't know all of his stuff, but the George Floyd thing was so serious. I felt like I was being lectured. And I was like, yes, this is, your moment to talk and speak to your crowd, but I didn't think it was really comedy.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just, like, know I would watch it. Like, I watched it at the moment and was like, yeah, like, I want to hear... Because, like, especially... like Dave being black in America and the way he's able to like talk about that, I'm always just like all ears about. I'm just like, please like wash this over me. His like political takes, I'm like less interested in. So like he told that like beautiful thing about his grandpa, and then like the joke ended up being about like how like Netflix bought Chappelle's show and he didn't make any money off of it. Yeah. And I was like, are we still talking about your Viacom contract from 2003? Like, is this really the moment? Like,
yeah, like, I didn't like that twist either. I was like, that's the end of it?
yeah. And like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm like making the bar too high or whatever. Or like, maybe it's the very nature of like, yeah, I'm going to use this like new political moment to talk about like my Viacom contract because like they treated me terribly. And they compared himself to like being a slave. Which I mean, it's he's allowed to do. Yeah, he's definitely allowed to. Freedom. I was just like, is this the moment we should be talking about your Viacom contract? Like, maybe I'm wrong.
I didn't like it either because I was also like, Dave Chappelle, do you need money? Like, are you hurting from the lack of stimulus checks? I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, it seemed like a little tone deaf, like a tiny bit, because like he's so, and like he also mentioned in that same thing, like I flew in a private jet, like that's the whole setup. But I also maybe
it just didn't work that night recording.
Yeah. I mean, he's also like winging it. Like, I don't think he gets a time limit, basically. I think like Lauren's like talk. And I think the rest of the episode, my perception of it was like they were scrambling because they started late because of the football game. And then like they had to cut stuff, I imagine. There was only one Weekend Update character. I was like, oh, they're definitely like flying by the seat of their pants during all this. Because Chappelle doesn't have... There's no rules when he hosts, basically, I don't think.
Yeah, he's too much of a veteran to be given a time limit.
Yeah, it's not like when they have like another host who's like never like spoken before, and like they have to like do a huge musical number where like the person just like stands there.
Especially when they have a comic on who's doing a stand-up set as the monologue, they really like give them more freedom.
Yeah, like they gave him a lot of freedom. Though even like I think he's just like a little bit more of a free comic up there. Like Mulaney, like I'm sure he's a little bit more of the Seinfeld school where it's like every word, every pause, Mulaney like knows what he's gonna do, and Chappelle sort of gets up there.
Mulaney is always on SNL. It's like every few months he's hosting the show.
Yeah, it's been 4 times already.
It's crazy.
And he like hasn't been famous that long. Like
No.
I loved comedy, so like I knew about those early specials, even before the Netflix specials. Like I was all over those.
He's like super awkward in the beginning specials.
Yeah, I love it. I love how like
I saw him live last year. He was pretty awkward. Like he didn't do well.
Really?
But I think the crowd loves him so much it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Where did you see him in LA?
I saw him at a San Francisco comedy festival, Clusterfest.
Oh yeah, I know people who were there.
He was headlining. I think he did 2 shows in one night. And I caught him, I think the early show, and he was like sweating, like in his little suit. And he seemed pretty nervous, but he was, hitting all the jokes. People liked it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as good as his like latest special.
Okay. So
I saw the human in him.
Yeah. Oh, that's really satisfying too. I find when they're like working stuff out.
Yeah, I like seeing my favorite comics bomb or like not do that great. I'm like, oh, like I know you could do so good at this, and tonight you're just not.
Yeah. Oh, that's like, it's a real gift to see a comic you love, not because that they could turn it on, and like go to stuff that they know works, but like they're like, no, this is how I got good by like doing all this work.
Or they're like, I want to do this set tonight. This is my new special. They're not going to just go give you like a greatest hits type of thing.
Yeah, there's something really satisfying about that. That I really love. Yeah, that's always a real gift.
How do you think mental health relates to comedy? Do you see like a lot of mentally unstable people in the comedy community, or does it help you with your own mental health?
At its best, it definitely provides an outlet for me. But at its best, it definitely provides an outlet. At its worst, because like the career path is so unsteady. I mean, I consider myself lucky. Yeah, I consider myself lucky in that like I have a day job at the school where I work the writing center, and so like I have a little bit of a better schedule. But for a lot of my friends who are comedians and who have mental illnesses or like struggle with therapists, like there's just a lot of free time, which can be like hard. And it always feels like you could be working, right? Because like every hour of the day is like, I could be writing, I could be doing this. So there's pressure in that way. And there's less viable careers in comedy right now in some ways, for the folks who like aren't, like making money doing it. It's not like you can do the Tonight Show once and like be rich forever. And so,
and entertainment's just hurting right now as an industry.
Absolutely. So like, do I see a connection? Like, absolutely. But I also think comedians might just be like a little bit more willing to like discuss it, or like be upfront about it, than like the general population. Like, I don't know how much talk of like mental health issues there are, at people who like sell insurance. And like, maybe I'm wrong, but like, I don't know. But I don't get the sense that like when I like interned at a law firm when I was like a senior in high school, like I don't get the sense that like we were having the same conversations that I have with comics in a comedy club, like after a mic before the 7:30 show,
Right. Do you see, if you probably know a lot of comics, do you see them being as open on stage as they are like after the mic or before the mic?
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, I have some friends. You're making me think of like, I have clean comic friends who have like demons.
You do?
Yeah, I have friends who are clean and like who like work clean and then like
That's
all
cool.
they want to talk about is porn. And then I have friends who like work dirty.
Oh, they're only clean on stage?
Yeah, they were only clean on stage, and off stage they're
okay.
They're like saints.
That's
so like
so weird.
That's what it made me think of. Yeah. Which I loved.
I feel like we don't have that in LA.
Oh, interesting.
I don't really come across clean comics, or maybe I'm not in that scene. I'm not on that level.
Sure. You have to be big to work clean, I guess, in a certain sense. this is, I just off topic, but it made me think of LA Comics. Did you watch the Comedy Store thing? Because I have not watched it yet.
No, is that a documentary? There's been so much coming out about the Comedy Store, I can't keep up.
Yeah, like an old comic who worked there made a doc about it.
Okay.
And I have no connection to the Comedy Store at all, but I did do a weekend on the road with two comics who are past there, and they were like telling me about it a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
I got to perform there before the pandemic a couple times, and I was like, oh, I've made it.
Yeah.
And then it's actually like, oh no, like this is just something that happens. Like it's not like I got passed at the Comedy Store. I just was on a show, but it was really cool.
Oh, I bet it was so cool. That's awesome.
It's legendary.
It is legendary. Yeah. 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 My buddy Ron, on like 2 weeks before the pandemic, 3 weeks maybe, had gotten passed at the Comedy Cellar. And like when the pandemic hit, I was just like this is all because your career was starting to go too well, and the universe had to like correct itself because you can't have too many good things happen to you, buddy.
I know 2020, cool. Just like people we know, the age we are, I feel like people are really like hitting their strides with like professional achievements. People are getting married or they're having kids or whatever, and then 2020 hit, and we're like, okay, everyone stop being happy and bragging. We're gonna go hunker down for now.
Yes, we're like leveling the playing field. Yeah, and like I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm partly moving back in with my parents, but I think I'd feel this way even if like I was still in the apartment, which is just like marriage just feels like so far away for me. Mm-hmm. It seems like that'll be a different person in a different lifetime.
Especially as you become a better comic, it feels like such a different path.
Yeah. Just like
it doesn't have to be. Your life. There's a happily married, monogamous relationship comics like Birbiglia, and there's some people who are doing stable, being okay.
Yeah. And like I do aspire to that. I like the idea of having like my own like routine and my own life outside of this. It would be nice to like go home to a person that I love late at night after doing comedy. But even that idea of like a late night doing comedy and like coming home, like I haven't thought about that in months, you know, because
it hasn't been reality for so long.
Yeah, and I've been really struggling with the idea of maybe not struggling with, but like I've been thinking a lot about like it's just like it's not something I can control. So I'm just like, okay, like I can't do comedy, like I'll try to do some other things. So like one of the things I'm actually working on, and this ties back to everything actually, is that I'm working on doing like sort of like a late night host monologue with like graphics and like pictures and stuff, sort of like a Daily Show or a John Oliver. But instead of tackling like the really complicated problems that John Oliver tackles, like I'm just going to tackle things that are like in my life. So the first episode that I have written, do like the deep dive essentially. And the first one that I've written that I'm going to film this weekend is about moving back home, and what that's like, and how the main idea is basically that like I don't feel sad. I feel sad. I feel sadness, like just like that, like life no longer existed in the way that it did.
Yeah, saying goodbye to your old life, starting something new, but you've done it before, so it's not that new.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to like miss stuff that's not there, I guess. But the idea is I don't feel bad about missing comedy. I feel bad about feeling bad about missing comedy, which is like I'm safe, I'm privileged, I get like a paycheck every 2 weeks, and I still feel bad. And so I feel bad about that. Like I have guilt, I have like survivor's guilt over like my privileged like pain. And so
you're not suffering enough.
Yeah, that I'm not suffering enough, that like my complaints and like my suffering like isn't worth discussing. And so like I just like the idea of the episode is just like I need an outlet from that, because like it's not fun. Like what do you mean I'm like, what do you mean I'm safe, healthy, privileged, and I'm unhappy? Like, that's bullshit.
Are you going to have visuals, diagrams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like Photoshop going on. I'm like, have a logo.
Perfect.
Yeah, like there's a song parody in it. I'm going to like write sketches that are going to go in the middle of them. It's sort of just going to be like, I can't get a late night job right now, so like I'm just going to do it myself, kind of.
It's a bring your own late night writer's packet to life.
It's literally that. Yeah. And like, if nobody watches it, I'm just like, whatever. Like, I just like want the practice.
I'll watch it.
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be good. I have some friends, like a friend who's going to direct it and help me edit it. And there's going to be a guest on the show. Yeah. It'll be fun.
Take all the help you can get. Cause I just doing my podcast. I'm like, why don't I have a team? Like it feels like so much work to put something out every week, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, when like the podcast host, like has like a bit or like riffs with like their tech. Yeah. I'm always just like, oh, it'd be so cool to like be successful enough to have a tech.
To have an engineer on site, a producer, an editor. I need like 5 people.
Yeah, I need all of HeadGum.
Do you have a title for the late night sketch?
Yeah, I'm calling it Gabe Time.
Okay.
And I'm having a meeting tomorrow with my buddy Chris, who designed my Edinburgh Fringe poster.
Oh, cool.
And he's going to like help me come up with a logo that'll sort of be like the default like John Oliver logo, like the Last Week Tonight thing. That's just like, that's in the corner when there's no like joke image or whatever. And yeah, I have like a friend helping with like the Photoshop jokes, sort of like the Daily Show does like a pun on a movie. I have a couple of those. Like it's a movie poster, but like we've changed the title to like be about the thing you're talking about. And yeah, I just like need a thing to be excited about. I'm sure this podcast is doing that for you too. But like being excited is really helpful.
It helps to be like, I can be creative and do my hour of podcasting and then like, you know, cry for 4 days while I edit it. Just like having that to look forward to is really nice.
Yeah, something for my fingers to do as I'm sobbing is always really important.
Like, I don't have any other friends, but I have myself.
Yes.
I have a guest. I have Gabe to talk to.
Yeah. I need something to do. And like, as much as I like fight it sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I have to like do something. It's always better, basically, to do it. And when you have stuff to do, then you can cancel, and that's the best.
Yes. I'm very busy working on my projects.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell the audience where they can find Gabe Time.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be uploading it to all my socials. I basically don't use Instagram. Well, I'll put it on Instagram, but Twitter's like where I'm at. Gabe Mollica on Twitter.
Yeah, you're really big on Twitter. I was looking, you have like a huge following.
Cool. That's very kind. I got to 1,000 followers, and it basically feels the same. But I do like Twitter.
That's what everyone says. Like I know a semi or pretty famous Twitter person. She's like, nothing changes when you get famous on Twitter. It feels that way, I'm sure.
No, I mean, the funniest thing, so I've had like 2 videos that like got passed around. I wouldn't say they went viral, but 2 comedy videos that people liked. And the most fun thing about that happening was just like there are other comics in like Chicago who I've never met. So I'm like friends on Twitter with like all these Chicago comics that I never would have known.
That's cool.
Then you like, I have these mutuals now with people who are like, oh, you're the guy from that thing. Like, and then they follow me. And like, I would not say they were fans. I would not say they like know who I am or would recognize me walking down the street. But it is sort of nice. It makes Twitter like slightly more bearable to have like my friends who I know, and then also like some strangers who like, we like each other's jokes.
Yeah. Twitter is the best for finding strangers in your pit of like comedy gold or like deep depression. For both of those things, I find a lot of Twitter harmony. Yes.
Twitter is definitely the app for me. Instagram makes me sad. Instagram is just like, that's where all your exes live. Yeah. And Twitter is just like, Twitter's more my speed.
Yeah. There's some of my friends just don't do Instagram. They're like, never going to do it, never going to download it, staying away. And I'm like, stay away. Instagram's not for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one that like I'll delete once a week and be like, nope, not going to go on it anymore. But Twitter I basically just use as like a news source and like a how I discovered my radical politics.
Yeah. Well, it's great for politics and like stalking comedians' politics or other people's politics.
Oh yeah, the sneaky favorite feature of Twitter is what has somebody liked. Where you like go to their profile and like see what things that they've liked. I'm like, oh, this is where you discover like what people are into. That's where like
that's
the
true.
deep dive
people
goes.
Just throw away likes like it's no big deal.
Yeah, they don't know that Gabe is watching. If only they knew.
I hope that's all your Twitter activity, just looking at people's likes. Very creepy, Gabe.
So Ashley Feinberg, do you know her? she follows all like the Trump children, and she finds what they've liked, and it's just like so funny, like because they're so lame and stupid.
Who is that?
Ashley Feinberg.
No, I
She's a
don't know her.
journalist. Oh, she's incredible. She's so funny.
The Trump children.
Yeah, the adult sons.
I like how all the big celebrities like Chrissy Teigen, John Legend have been adding Ivanka and Jared, being like, you know, here's me singing like "Fuck you, Donald Trump" like, for 1 full minute. Everyone's coming after them now. Like, we're gonna shut down society for Ivanka and Jared.
Yeah, it would be nice to shame them as much as possible.
Yeah, let's make their life hell for a while.
Yeah, they deserve it. I mean, Jared Kushner has COVID blood on his hands. I hate that guy.
The worst team in the history of the America.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So let me ask you about therapy.
Please.
You were mentioning you like recently got back into therapy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like found a new one. I had started. So I guess my brief history of therapy is I had a terrible one in high school who like I never went back to again because she diagnosed me with 9/11, and then
you were sad about 9/11.
I was sad about 9/11, and then in college I met a therapist. His name Dave Walden, and he was amazing, David, and really changed my life. Just like I came in there asking questions about like why am I working so hard and like what's the like how do you be in a relationship and stuff like that, and he was just like always really very much a humanist. And then I ended up taking his counseling psychology class.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he was a wonderful professor, super smart, super interesting. I think about that class all the time. And then I had a therapist before Scotland, a very like stoic man who like just like listened a lot.
Yeah.
Very different than David, but I just like needed a space to talk. And then I found a guy right before the pandemic, so that's 9/11, college, first guy, second guy. Now I'm on my third New York City therapist. So this third guy, the second guy was like, I saw it twice, didn't matter. But this guy that I'm seeing now, I met once, and he's like a CBT therapist.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more like behavioralist. And he was talking to me about how like he sees himself as he calls himself an accountant because he's there to like hold people accountable. And I don't know.
That's not what accountants do.
Yeah. It's like, so that is a joke.
Okay.
And
he can play with words.
Yeah. He's at least capable of doing that. And he was very honest. He was like, you do stand up? And I was like, yeah. He's like, are you on YouTube? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, I'm going to watch that. Like other people wouldn't tell you that. And I was like, okay. So like, he's in some ways like radically honest, but
that's also, I like that he's taking an interest in you to be like, oh, you do stand up? I'm going to check it out.
Yes. It's definitely better than the alternative of like, oh, cool, you do comedy, like whatever. It's more interesting that he would say that. You're right. See, I didn't think of that. So like right now I haven't had like a real session with him. I just had like a brief conversation. Yeah. And I'm like, it's funny. I'll listen to this in a month and Gabe in the future, if you're listening, like, this is how you feel now about this session that you haven't had yet. But I'm like a little dubious of like, because I don't necessarily think therapy needs to be like result oriented in terms of like, I reached my goal weight or like I got the job or like I asked the girl out or whatever. I think it just like
sometimes it's more exploratory.
Yeah. And like humanist in that way and open-ended. And he seemed more like, he seemed to suggest that he was like, sort of results based and like let's change our behavior and we can be happier and like it takes effort to be happy. And so like part of that rings true to me where I'm just like, yeah, it does take effort to be happy and like I can get behind that.
And I have to remind myself of that. I'm like, why am I not happy? It's like, oh, because you're doing the same stuff every day.
Yes.
You have to make a change.
Yes. So like part of me is like reluctant because like I see myself as this like radical humanist where I'm just like, no, I just like need to express myself. And part of me like thinks that I might really like the CBT where I'm already like at my best can be like a very disciplined person and at my worst can be like such like a lazy like being lazy and lethargic and another word that means the same thing. And
from the exterior you seem very disciplined because you're like making strides in comedy. You did 100 sets. I feel like you're really like checking stuff off of like what a comedian should be doing.
Yeah, I guess I do try to do that. I guess I just sometimes feel like I'm just like it's all chaos and I'm just like trying to like order the chaos. And like maybe it's funny. I've dated people before that that like I've been the radical one, where I've been the one that's like too impulsive and like too all over the place. And then I've also dated people who have been more like all over the place and like thought of me as like the one who like needs a schedule and like needs their hand held. And it's so funny to me to have like been both. Because it's way more in some ways like it's easier to be the one who's like kooky and like non-traditional than it is to be the one who's like more buttoned down. Like it's less fun to be the buttoned down one, I found, in some ways.
I think you need one of those in the relationship though, because if you're both kooky and without a schedule, then like when are you gonna go hang out with your friends? Like no one's gonna plan it.
Yes, somebody needs to be the planner.
Someone's the doer. Someone's like taking the initiative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know where I am. Like I don't know who I am, or at least like, yeah, I don't know where that goes. But it was funny to date somebody in my early 20s who was like, you're crazy, and to date somebody in my late 20s who's been like, you are a rule follower and like you like order.
So was that also like the point in your life? Because were you like early 20s before comedy, late 20s kind of deep in comedy?
Mm-hmm. For sure. So maybe I've changed. That's also very possible.
Yeah. Because we're in our 20s, we're like really finding ourselves. Like I'm not the same person I was when I was 26. Now I'm almost 30. So you really go through a lot of evolutions, or hopefully you do. You don't want to stay the same person as you were at 21.
Yeah. In some ways, like I do feel different. I do feel in some ways more mature. And then sometimes I just like do something that I'm just like, this is what 13-year-old Gabe would do.
And so what's an example of that? I want to know.
What's something that 13-year-old Gabe would do? Just like getting emotional about like stupid stuff. Sometimes it feels like I'm just like going through puberty.
Yeah.
Or like I'll have like an argument with my mom about something stupid. And I'm just like, I can't read your mind. If you want me to do that, like you need to tell me, or like whatever that fight is. And I'm just like, oh, like what I like the way I just spoke to my mom is how I spoke at 13. And then there are things like this like low carb thing where I'm just like, I feel very confident that like when I'm motivated and like when I'm excited about it, I can be really disciplined and I can cook for myself and, cut the avocados and like do all the stuff that I need to do to try to be
it's like really hard to cut an avocado. I can't do it.
When they're not perfectly ripe, they're like kind of disappointing. Like I had one today and I had to like sort of like force it down and I was just like, ugh.
That was one of my big reasons to move to California. I was like, they eat avocados there. They can't be that expensive.
Yeah, the tacos. I'm definitely jealous of all the Mexican, like.
There's guacamole food everywhere you go.
Oh, yeah. I'm all in on that. And the LA food scene, like we have Koreatown also. But I hear like the Koreatown is just like outrageous and cool.
Yeah, I think I haven't experienced it enough to really be like, oh, it's awesome. Like New York still, I think, is the top, but I'm biased. Lived in New York forever.
Yeah.
But LA is a lot to offer too. Can't knock LA.
Yeah, no, again, I'm afraid to go because I would like it too much. I like eating alone in my car. I think LA is for me.
You should experience it. Let yourself tempt fate a little bit.
I think I would love to go out there like with a thing to do, either like working on a show or something. But also like it would just be fun to go and visit and.
Well, you can even just come do comedy like when comedy comes back, or if we're doing these backyard shows. That's something to do. Like when I first came out here, I just did an open mic at Nerd Melt, which isn't even a thing anymore. And I was like, I did comedy in LA. I felt like I really hit some milestone.
Yeah, R.I.P. Nerd Melt. That was like that was where they filmed Pete Holmes and Kumail and Jonah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It was a cool little comic book open mic type thing. And I met like this 16-year-old kid who was like already more famous than I ever will be. And I was like, I'm glad like the young people are out with their dreams.
I met my friend Dan Wilbur is a stand-up and has been doing comedy forever. And when I met him, like we like each did a joke at an open mic that like the other one like noticed and like liked, and we sort of like made eye contact and we were like, oh, like I liked your jokes, and we ended up doing some writing together. And he's been doing comedy like a long time in New York, and so like he knew Pete and Kumail and all those guys when they came to New York. And then one day he like posted a video of him doing stand up at Nerd Melt, like on the Jonah and Kumail show, and I was just like, damn, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And he was just like, yeah, whatever. Like I did the show, and I was just like, no, dude, like you're cool, like you're the real deal.
Yeah, it's really cool when you do something you've only seen on the internet or on TV, where you're like, I'm here doing this. Like
Mm-hmm.
it feels very out of body at the time.
Yeah, I've definitely had sets where it felt like, even just like, I've never done the Comedy Cellar, but like even like a New York Comedy Club, or like Gotham or something, where I'm just like, oh, like I'm on a show with somebody I really admire, or like I'm on a stage that like I've seen, Seinfeld at.
Yeah.
It's a cool, to feel like you're part of the club, to feel like you're part of something bigger um, than yourself is pretty neat.
Yeah, you're in that piece of history with that comic that you admire.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah,
Let me ask you, because you brought it up a few times, like how you think you like are in these relationships with girls who are like not on your level or like on some other level. Is that something you struggle with, or like what's your current dating predicament, especially in COVID?
oh, interesting. I am just like, dating feels like so
That
distant to
sigh,
me.
Gabe. Such a
Yeah,
big sigh.
it's just like, and like I tried in
I wonder what
quarantine.
people are doing because this is like the only time I haven't been single. So I'm so fascinated by what single people are doing.
I think I tried, like early and middle pandemic, to like talk to people and like reach out and like try to like spark some romance, and then like I got to a point where I was just like, I am just not ready for anything. Like I like yeah, I just like didn't feel ready, don't feel like dating, don't
Yeah,
feel like, it just like
that's
felt
like
too overwhelming. It like scared me. Like how
that's a
not ready I felt. And
it's
like
a
it
big thing to admit too, to be like, oh, I don't have the space for another person.
yeah, well, not everybody in my life was so happy to hear that, but I it just like, and like, you know, good people like in my life that like thought about dating or like wanted to date or whatever. But like right now I'm just like, that feels so far away for me, and like maybe again, future Gabe, maybe like
Yeah.
one day I'll feel differently. And like I'm sure I will. But right now I'm just like, I'm living with my parents. I'm trying to make the best of it. I can't like I can't like muscle through a relationship if I'm not like feeling it, and if I'm
Yeah.
not like feeling like an adult, and I feel like I just need to like survive right
So
now
you're
and like try to be
taking time for
healthy.
yourself.
Yeah, as cliche as that idea is, I'm 100%, you could not have said it better. I'm taking time for myself. I'm like trying to like figure
This is
out,
the
what is
perfect
quarantine Gabe
time.
like. Yeah, yeah,
I
it
mean,
really
we're
is.
housebound. Like, why not really learn who you are and what you want and work on stuff that makes you excited, makes you want to keep doing this in the future, like your late night project.
Yeah, yeah, I needed something like that. Um, that felt like a craft, that felt like an expression, that like I didn't owe anything to anybody, because like I just like don't feel equipped to do that right now. And there are other times in my life where I'm just like guns blazing, like, no, I'm in love. Like this is like the thing that matters most to me.
Okay, so you have like a
Um,
romantic side where you could be like, you
oh
know,
yeah, yeah, a
fuck other
notorious,
responsibilities.
yeah, a notorious one where I'm just like, we're all gonna die. I just want to be with you. Yeah, I'm
Life is
like,
short.
yeah, I get like very fatalistic about it, where I'm just like, this is important to me. This is the only thing that matters.
That's cool.
Um, and so
But now's not the time.
now is not the time. I mean, like I'm
I
sitting on
wouldn't
my
think
bed from
it is for
15.
a
Yeah,
lot of people. Yeah.
yeah, and like I'm trying not to be too hard on myself about that either. Where it's just like, um, this is just what I need. Like I just need to chill, and like, I'm not even talking to anybody in a romantic way, really. I'm just like, just trying to get by and like see my friends and like do what I need to do to like feel okay during this, because like it feels like, and like, woe is me, but like it feels like my late 20s are like slowly like all at once sort of disappeared, and what I thought was going to be 2 weeks off from work is now going to be like maybe like 2 years.
Yeah.
um
But also, I think New York's doing pretty okay. I think you'll have a social life before I do in LA.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I was talking to a friend where I'm like, I work in a school, and it's like, am I confident that next September we'll start school in person? I'm like, if I had to guess, I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like
even
sort of
though
scary.
schools in other states are like fully in person all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I was talking to my buddy in Texas who's like a middle school athletic director, and he was just like, yeah, we started with sixth graders and slowly brought in seventh and eighth graders, and like now we're all in school. And I was just like, I guess you have more space. Like in the school I go to in Queens, there's a community college on the first two floors, a high school on the fourth floor, a high school on the fifth floor, and then our school is the sixth and seventh floor. And we just today got our first email that was like a kid entered the building this weekend who tested positive for COVID. And I'm just like, oh, like this is the first time we're getting that scary email. It's November. There's no way we're ready by September. Like this is going to be a long-term project. Like I need to figure out. So I like got motivated in the last like couple days. I'm like, I need to figure out not just like the late night thing that I'm going to do myself, but like also I need to figure out like bigger plans of some kind. Like maybe not grad school, but like stuff to do.
Like what does the immediate future hold for you?
Yeah, can I find like a part-time gig somewhere that like fulfills me in some way, or like start writing something when like have a harder deadline. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Maybe take like a comedy class or a writing class.
Yeah, I took a late night writing class with this guy Pete Gross, who wrote for Seth Meyers.
Oh, nice.
And so I did that in August, and like it turned my August around. Like it really did.
Yeah, it's cool to get some kind of professional guidance in a way like that, like taking a class or going to an improv. Like even a one-time improv class really gets your creative juices flowing in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you get to talk to someone who's probably older than you, who's been doing it longer, and they're like, this is what we're doing, this is how it goes, this is like the way it works, and you're like, oh, there's like a way to do things. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like taking classes every once in a while.
Yeah, I really, when I first started doing comedy in New York, I was at the Magnet a lot, and I took a storytelling class there, and I took improv and sketch, and it was really, I mean, you just like feel like a writer. You have sketches due, and you have monologue jokes to write, and it keeps you just like eating fiber. It keeps you regular.
Yeah, it's a good routine to be on. So we can spin a random question if you're up for it.
That sounds amazing. I would love to do that. Real quick, is that book next to you The Artist's Way?
It is. I have not made it very far, but I started doing the morning pages that she talks about.
Yeah, I do those.
They help. I mean, I have a lot of resentment and a lot of emotions that do come out on the morning pages. So I see what she's talking about. Like right away in the day, you got to get out your pent up whatever, and before you start your craft.
Yeah, I found it, and we could definitely spin, but I found
No, go ahead.
From August 1st last year to Christmas. I did them every day, and then I was like on and off again. And
was that the full 12 weeks, or it was longer than 12 weeks?
I think it was slightly longer, and then I did them. I have the calendar up right there from.
What are you talking about? You're not disciplined, Gabe. You did the artist pages every day.
I did them almost every day in July, but like I wasn't doing much else. And I found at the height of me doing them, I found that some days it was really hard because I was like facing emotions and thoughts and fears first thing in the morning that later in the day like made my day harder. Where I was like, oh, I started my day by like thinking about this like you know, death this or like
deep issue.
Yeah, what if like this person dies, or like what if I never blank, you know, like deep like philosophical questions about my life and like my fears. And I found it really hard. But I also like got a buzz from it too. Especially on days when I pushed through and like could write also. So I think it's a good tool, and like I don't know. I'm doing low carb right now. I don't know if I can add morning pages to that. Like I just need to like singularly focus.
Low carb sounds really hard. I don't know how you're doing that. As an Italian person, I could not do it.
I know my mom makes meatballs and puts breadcrumbs in them, and I'm like, I guess those are keto. I don't know.
Just a little bit of breadcrumbs. But yeah, the morning pages, I've been like encountering a lot of darkness, a lot of demons, and it does put a weird tone on my day. But then it also kind of frees me up to be like, oh, that was cathartic, and maybe I cried in the morning, but at least I didn't cry before I went to bed. Like, you know, you're emotional at some point, but for a good reason.
Yeah, yeah. At its best, it can really like be alleviating. And its worst, it's just like stirring shit that didn't need to be stirred. I'm trying to like live my life. Morning pages.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. My therapist actually recommended that book, so that's why I picked it up.
That sounds like an LA therapist to me.
Yes,
I feel like they're
she
just
was like,
handing
"Have you
out.
heard of the Artist Way? I use it every day." And I'm like, "Okay."
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But it's been good so far. I recommend the Artist Way.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
All right, let's spin a random question.
Oh, I
These
love
are all
it.
like kind of feng shui oriented, not too hard.
Yeah, this is great. Look at this. That's a wheel.
Right, we're in Vegas, baby.
Yeah, Wheel of Fortune.
Okay, I landed on gratitude. Tell me something you're grateful for.
Oh man, I gratitude is a thing that I think is like very important to me. About being intentional about. I am grateful for, I guess like being home. Being home, I have a new sense of gratitude for like my parents, like owning a house and like
Yeah.
having two kids and like buying a house in like the early 90s, and I'm just like thinking about them like, oh yeah, like they were in their early 30s and like they saved up and like they bought this house, and it was a big deal to own property, you know? And it's like maybe it's more difficult to buy a house in 2020 than it was in 1991, but it feels like very I'm like more grateful than I've ever been for like, oh yeah, they like paid the mortgage like throughout my entire childhood. They like every month they like had the money for it because they like worked hard and like that was their goal and they wanted to have a family. So I'm very grateful for like their matureness, and like that feels tough to say because like we argue politically.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I mean like they're liberals, but like I'm again like a radical leftist.
I mean, who are we not arguing with politically
Yes,
these days?
yes. Yeah, they're like, we love Andrew Cuomo. And I'm like, that guy's the worst. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me
We
started.
voted for Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Something like that where you're like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, like, even like my dad, like, we even voted for the same primary person. And I'm still like, you're a neoliberal. Like,
No, it's crazy how divided you get. Like, I literally filled out my ballot next to my boyfriend, and we fight about politics multiple times a day. And we had very similar ballots, but it's just like there's, you know, you can really nitpick and tear each other apart.
Yeah. And especially like, you know, I'm a flippin' adult living at home. And so like there are times where I don't feel gratitude to them, but being home and just like thinking about like where were my parents when they were 28 and like what was their life like. I feel gratitude for their choices because like they really did like give me a pretty great life.
They did good by you. And also they bought a house in a nice neighborhood. It's my neighborhood.
Yeah. Our parents made very eerily similar decisions, Michelle.
Yeah. Like-minded people.
That led to this conversation, yeah.
Do you think that's because you're coming to that age when they bought the house, you're like thinking about it more?
I think so, yeah. And like it was a very different climate, and like my dad, like their lives are very different. And like in their relationship, like my dad's like the crazy one and my mom is like the real follower.
The crazy one.
Yeah, he's the one who's like all over the place.
He's the fun one.
Yeah, yeah, he can be.
I don't know your parents, so I can say things like this.
Oh yeah,
making
say whatever you
wild
want.
assumptions.
Yeah. They're fun in their own ways. I'm sure my dad would describe himself as the fun one. But yeah, I think there's something about being at that age, and you know, like my parents definitely did not make money their like lone priority in life. And they're both still working and they're in their 60s and like it looks like they're going to work for a while, because they made choices during their lives to like do things that they thought were meaningful in addition to the things that paid the bills. And I think that's something I definitely inherited. And so like why I am probably farther away from buying my own house right now than they were when they were my age. I like to think I'm modeling myself after them in some ways, just like the like the marriage of responsibility and also like finding things that are meaningful for you to do.
Yeah. Like you
as an
respect
adult.
You respect the choices they made and where it's brought them.
Definitely, I respect their choices. That's very well said. Yeah, my dad went to law school at 50. He graduated law school the same year I graduated high school. So
I think I knew that.
Yeah,
it's pretty badass.
It's pretty badass. He was just like the old guy in law school, and all the kids who graduated, the man who graduated first in his class, second in his class, and third in his class are all the lawyers he like collaborates with cases. He just like, you're the smartest kid in the class, like I'm gonna have a law firm, and he like works for himself, and he's like, I have a big case and I need somebody to help me write it. You're my guy. So he like he's very like passionate, and he loves the law, and
he knows how to network.
Oh, he's the networking king. Yeah.
That's awesome. What kind of law does he do?
He does horse law.
What?
He's a horse lawyer.
That's not a thing. Is that?
I swear it's a thing. Yeah, because he worked in horse racing for a long time.
Okay.
And when he became a lawyer, there's a lot of like horse racing law to be had. There's ownership of horses that gets under contention. There's jockeys who get suspended for doing something they shouldn't do. There's people who sue the trainers for not being paid properly.
Is it called equestrian law?
It's called equine law, yeah.
Equine law, okay.
Yeah, he's an equine lawyer.
Nice.
But he also like does all different he does all different types of things, but he works for himself because like he could never, like the idea of my dad going to a 9-to-5 job is like the funniest thing in the whole world, because like he could never do that, like not in a million. He could never show up where somebody needed him every day. It would never happen.
Yeah, I'm sure he shows up somewhere sometimes if he's
he has a little office that he goes to that gets like the Golf Channel that he's very happy with, but like just in terms of respecting his choices, like in theory he could like try to find a job at like some like fancy law firm, but like that's just like never going to be his deal. And so like he made choices, and I think they're pretty good ones, but there's just a little bit less security. I mean, he's sort of like a comic where it's like for him, like a weekend gig is like somebody calling him with some dispute. And sometimes business just like falls out of the sky, where like I'll be driving around with him, or we'll be going to play golf or something, and he'll just get 3 phone calls, and you're just like, whoa, those are 3 cases. And then sometimes it'll be like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and he'd be like, just waiting on the phone to ring, like need some work. So like we have that in common a little bit with like the idea of working in comedy or working in entertainment, where it's a little bit less stable than I'm a public school teacher and I show up on these 180 school days, and that's the deal.
Yeah, that makes life more interesting. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly works for him.
And then I know my mom's a lawyer also, and she's like she never plans to retire. She's like, no, I like what I do. And, she doesn't know what she would do if she retired. So
I didn't know your mom was a lawyer. Very cool.
Yeah, she has wills, trusts, and estates.
Yeah, okay, very cool. Is she work in? We're getting real GC centric. Does she work in town?
She works in GC off of like near 7th Street, a few streets over.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my dad's office is on Franklin.
Okay, yes, they might be like right by each other.
Yeah, it's very possible.
But just to bring it back to 9/11, my mom was super busy when 9/11 happened, making wills for people and dealing with their estates.
Oh my God, I imagine. Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but I imagine September 20th, all of America was like, you know what? It's been a few days. Everybody needs a will.
Right. I mean, I was, also in middle school, so I didn't know what was going on with my mom's work at the time. But when coronavirus hit, she was like, we can't really go into the office, and I don't know how our business is going to be. But when September 11th went down, she was doing great. So maybe she predicted COVID would be good for her, and so far it has been. a spike in people wanting wills. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to give them wills.
A business that never goes out of style.
Yeah, everybody needs a will. That's smart.
But we've come to the end, Gabe. I don't want to keep you up in New York any longer. So tell the audience where to find you, what you want to promote.
Oh, that's very kind. Just like Twitter and Instagram are perfect. If you feel like getting real frisky, you can friend me on Facebook. There won't be anything that you won't see on Twitter and Instagram. It's just my name, Gabe Mollica. I put up some sketches and some some videos and
you have some funny videos up there.
Oh, thank you.
I like them. You put your acting skills to work.
Yeah, my I wasn't in all those musicals for nothing. And I have more ideas for videos that I just like haven't like worked myself up to actually making. So there will be more in the near future. And eventually come see a stand-up show, and then you can get on my email list and we'll do comedy forever. But until then, just like follow me on the internet and say hello.
Yeah. Follow Gabe. I'll put all the details in the podcast description. And this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so nice talking.
Yeah. We'll talk again soon.
Therapy roulette, consent to vent, trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy roulette, consent to vent. If you don't have problems, then you're probably repressing shit, and you should find a therapist who's